Today I get the privilege to introduce Mr. Tom Olson. For over 3 decades, Mr. Olson has been a business systems engineer and analyst in the communications, aerospace, and publishing sectors. In addition, he spent several years in the finance services sector, making him a dual threat in the industry. Today, he serves as Director of Business Development for Avialto. He's also the chairman and founder of the non-for-profit Center for Space Commerce and Finance. He's the owner of New Space Business Plan Competition and Space Investment Summit Series. I'm guessing Tom does not have much spare time based on that. So thank you so much for giving us your time today. We're really excited to hear from you. Over to you.
Let me unmute and say that again. Thanks so much. And I'm happy to be here today. I have a short slideshow at the end of which we're going to make some very interesting announcements. So let me share my screen real quickly. I thought I'd do as an intro to business plan competitions is that I kind of rehashed something I did a few years ago for IAC. I wanted to contrast kind of the history of competitions and prizes in our industry and how they developed, and I get to show off a little history, and it's a lot of fun, and it also prepares a lot of contrast to the way things used to happen and the way they're happening, or hopefully they're happening now. The prize model we started, we'll call that prize model 1.0. Okay, that started actually over 100 years ago. We were flying in 1903. Only 6 years later, the Brits offered a 1,000-pound prize for the first pilot to successfully cross the English Channel. That prize was won by that guy in the upper left. His name is Louis Blériot, and he won the 1,000-pound prize. Now, between then and the next big prize was a world war. Now, as you know, war can have a way of really accelerating technology development. And so by 1919, the Brits again offered a 10,000-pound prize for the first crew who could go from basically anywhere in North America to anywhere in Ireland. That was won by the team in the middle of Alcock and Brown. It looks like kind of a hard landing there, but they did do it. They left, but they did the shortest route they could from Newfoundland and kind of flew across Greenland and then landed in Northern Ireland. And of course, up next was the $25,000 Orteig Prize for the first flight across the Atlantic from New York to Paris. That was, of course, won by Charles Lindbergh in 1927. I'm skipping through that quickly because I wanted to showcase this lovely woman in the lower left corner. She's probably one of the best female aviators you've ever seen, and you probably know nothing about her or don't even know who she is. Everyone remembers Amelia Earhart. This woman's name is Amy Johnson. And in 1930, 6 years before Earhart tried to go around the world, this woman flew solo, mind you, from England to Australia, and won, I believe it was another 10,000-pound prize. That same year, the Asahi Shimbun newspaper in Japan offered a $25,000 prize for the first person or people to cross the Pacific. That prize was again won by a couple of Americans, Clyde Pangborn and Hugh Herndon, and that was also in 1930. And you can see them after they landed there near Osaka. They launched from Seattle back then. And so this became a standard thing. Now, fast forward about 60 years. We didn't see much about prizes because, again, we had another World War, and then we had a lot of commercial development. And, by the 1950s, people were flying commercial airliners everywhere, so there wasn't much use for a prize. So what was the next thing? Well, the next great thing didn't happen until 1995, when Peter Neemandes and some others announced the X Prize. Now, of course, the X Prize was the first true space prize. It was $10 million for the first team to launch a small rocket-propelled spacecraft up to the edge of space, 100 kilometers, and back down again, and then repeat that feat within a 2-week period. That was won in late 2004, as you know, by Burton Tan and Scale Composites. And that opened up a lot of doors for a lot of people in the industry. Now, so what we want to look at real quickly is how much bang for the buck did we get out of that? Because in the case of a prize model, it's really all or nothing. And there may be a lot of competitors and they all put a lot of money in to develop their technology, but there's going to be only one winner. Well, let's look at that for just a second. Back then in $1927 for the Orteig Prize, there were 9 teams collectively spent about $400,000 to win a $25,000 prize. Now, there were positive results from that because we got airmail and commercial services applications grew insanely rapidly after 1927, including, as you see there, a 300% increase in pilot's license applications. Now, fast forward again about 80 years, and you see the Ansari X Prize. They claim, the X Prize Foundation claims, only $100 million. Well, $100 million was spent by 26 teams to try to achieve that goal. Interestingly, that same year, the Aldrich Commission, which was a series of government-sponsored talks in various cities about commercializing space and the future space. They claimed that upwards of 400 million had been spent by those 2016. So, you know, whoever you want to believe is whoever you want to believe. I remember one guy though, he said, oh, 400 million was spent for that prize. That's a 40-to-1 return on innovation. Oh, well, no, that's not true at all. That's a topic for another conversation. But in fact, if you want to bring it up during the panel later, I'd be happy to touch on it. But as a result, to date, about $3 billion or more has been invested on commercial spaceflight and commercial spaceflight applications in both the public and private sectors. So you got some bang for the buck from X Prize, and there have been other X Prizes like the Google Lunar X Prize, and there have been others. What I want to get to is kind of what I call Prize Model 2.0, which is the business plan competition. Now, business plans competitions have been going on for many, many, many years on the academic level. Especially Rice University is known for its multi-million-dollar sponsorships for business plan competitions in a multitude of industries. But to date, according to one group I had researched at the time, there are only maybe 9 or 10 what I would consider pro competitions that were sponsored independent of academia. And I'm showcasing the biggest one, which is called Accelerate Michigan Innovation. They had a $500,000 first prize, which is nothing to sneeze at. And they also had 8 different market sector prizes and a little People's Choice Award. In our group, we try to replicate the People's Choice Award at our events. It's a lot less money, but it's fun because everybody gets to vote on it who's been participating and watching the show. But there are only like 9 of them in the whole country, and that's the biggest one. And the rest of them are a lot less. Now, I have been with what was called the New Space Business Plan Competition. That was something that was started in 2003 by the Space Frontier Foundation. And the first early sponsor of that was the Heinlein Prize Trust, which you see as HPT there. And the prizes range from $2,000 to $5,000, mostly depending on you know what mood art was in that week. But somebody caught that. Okay. Sorry. But it's a fun thing. I got involved in 2009, and from then on, we didn't do a competition in 2010. But in 2011, we started. 2011, 12, and 13 were the sweet NASA grant years, and we had a lot of fun with that. We were still part of the Space Frontier Foundation, and that first year we got a $25,000 grant and a second prize from Heinlein. And actually, oh, who was that? It was Altia Space Machines won the first one. And some of you guys have probably heard of them. They've been doing very, very well since then, the last 10 years, since they won that prize. They were the first ones to win a big prize in our competition. And we started developing a really nice methodology for doing all this. And that's scaled upward in 2012 and 13 for $100,000 first prizes. Even some larger second prizes, including we did get one private sponsor in 2013, ATK, which then became Orbital ATK, which then became Northrop Innovations, but it's still the same people. I know those guys, and they still watch what we're doing very carefully. And then after the NASA grant money went away, we still had a nice what we called a lightning pitch competition in 2014. And then after that, the foundation decided, at least for a while, that they didn't want to be in the business plan competition business. And so we decided, well, what do we want to do? And so we formed our own 501c3 nonprofit called the Center for Space Commerce and Finance. And we got our footing, and then we planned some more events. And we're doing smaller events, but we're doing them frequently. We're doing at least 2 a year. We have 2017 through 2019, we did at least 2 events a year at 2 different conferences. And again, to a large extent, the Highline Prize Trust has been backing us. Although I got to tell you, something really interesting happened in 2017 at the second event, which was at the New Worlds Conference in Austin that year. The quality of the finalists presenting impressed one of the judges so much that he decided on his own that in addition to the Heinlein Prize, he would reach into his own pocket and fund a second first place prize. That guy's name is Dylan Taylor. You may know, some of you may know who he is. That was pretty amazing for us. So we feel like we're doing pretty well with that. Obviously, 2020, because of all the things that went on, and we know what they are, we all had to kind of sit one out. But now we're going to go ahead, and we figured out some ways to move forward. I wanted to show you, again, there were some of the results. Because of how we do it, we could open up the competition to a wider variety. It wasn't just anybody with a launch company can show up. It could be someone building a better transmitter, someone building a better spacesuit glove. Even in 2012 and 13, we had a couple of biotech companies that actually participated and made the final round. So it started to stretch out to all sorts of industries. And we began through our effort to show that where space used to be considered from an investment perspective as kind of the redheaded stepchild sitting off to the right, it really is an area where almost in this day and age, almost every industry has something to offer space, and space has something to offer every industry. And this is where we are now. And so I would say comparison, the old prize model 1.0, you had, there's a high cost of entry, and it's kind of an all or nothing single result focused. And I would argue that the return on investment was kind of debatable because you end up with a lot of technology dead ends. A lot of things just never went very far. There were, how many people, let's say 26 entries for the Ansari X Prize. I'm not sure how many of them are still in business today or whether their technologies got very far. And those kinds of things are still happening. For example, even the private sector now is kind of an aside. There is at one time, and maybe today, there are over 130 or more startup to early to mid-stage companies. They're all in launch. Now, my question is, how many of those do you think are going to survive in the next 10 years? And where is that technology going to go, or is any of it end up just a dead end? I guess we're going to find out as the shakeout happens over the next decade. I'll say let's start out with 150 companies. There are going to be 10 or 12 left at the end of that period. But the nice thing about the BPC model is it opens the door to a wide variety of industry players that want to develop a space hook for what they're doing. And the odds of winning are better. It's a lower cost of entry. And usually, and as these live events that we did, we'll see what happens here, there's a real good opportunity for potential investor contact. Once our event kind of became at certain conferences the thing to go see, a lot of investment guys were coming into the room and taking a look at what we had. And I'm hoping they're still going to do it. And it's very easy and it's very cheap to bootstrap compared to a major prize model. $10 million prize to do something in space, or I can give you a $5 or a $10 or a $50,000 prize to do something equally interesting. And our methodology makes it actually rather cheap to start up and maintain the system itself to make all that happen. And so we've awarded nearly $400,000 in prizes over the last decade. And we've helped a lot of companies get their start. And so I'm really happy about that. And that's kind of also ties into basically my conclusions. Yeah, it's about the time we offered for this, because the schedule is a little bit conflicting. So I figure I'm going to do a good thing. Anybody has a couple quick questions, and then we're going to move forward with what I hope is a nice big announcement.